Houthi strikes on Ma'rib leave several casualties among civilians. Climate change aggravates the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. The United States urges Iran to support peace efforts in Yemen. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Injil Zazi. 6 civilians were killed and 10 others were injured, including women and children, due to Houthi missile attack on Ma'rib yesterday. This is another major Houthi escalation, which proves that such a terrorist group can never make peace in Yemen. This report has more details.
After a relative relief for civilians over the past 6 months, Ma'rib in particular came again to the surface with a new crime committed by the Houthi militia. A Houthi missile strike late Monday killed 6 people and leaving 10 others wounded, including children and women. A military source said the missile strike had a weapon depot that exploded and sent fires, flying shells and shrapnel in Ma'rib.
Every day, the Houthi militia confirms to the Yemeni people and the international community that it is a terrorist group. The peace that the militia is advocating for is nothing but the killing of the innocent children and the unarmed civilians. The latest crime for the Houthis was the missile strike on the city of Ma'rib yesterday.
A state of panic and fear overwhelmed the citizens in the city of Ma'rib as a result of the sounds of explosions and projectiles flying from the third military area toward the homes of citizens. A black night in which the civilians in Ma'rib experienced after months of cautious calm.
It was very frightening. The explosions continued for 4 hours. The explosion hit the civilians in their homes in the displacement camps and the patients in the hospitals. We call on the Houthis to fear God and commit their religious morals. There are no fighters here. All of them are unarmed civilians.
This is how Ma'rib appeared as a result of the Houthi bombing after a ceasefire that lasts for 6 months, to open once again a new page of suffering, while the international community is totally silent toward the crimes and violations of the Iranian-backed militia.
A number of victims came to the emergency department in Ma'rib Public Hospital. There were 3 death cases, including 3 children, 2 girls aged 5 and 16 and 1 boy aged 17, along with other wounds. In Al Jawf Hospital, there was 1 death and 5 wounded cases, including children. The Houthi terrorism has penetrated every Yemeni house.
The Houthi missile strike spared no innocents. The victims of the strikes were children and displaced people who thought that the camps will shelter them and protect their lives from any aggression. And again the question remains, who would protect civilians from the Houthi death machine?
Rights Raider condemned the Houthi missile attack on Ma'rib. It called on the Houthi militia to spare civilians the scourge of war and for the parties to the conflict to abide by international conventions. The organization called on the international community to play a serious role in limiting the attacks on civilians. Also in Ma'rib, Major General Muhammad al-Jaradi, an advisor to the Minister of Defense, was assassinated along with one of his companions. Local sources said that al-Jaradi was in his car when gunmen shot at his car east of the city of Ma'rib. Head of the Presidential Leadership Council, Rashad Al-Alimi, participated in a high-level session chaired by German Chancellor during COP27. The session touched upon the international efforts required to expand the scope of joint actions and reduce the risks of climate change. It addressed the burdens of war and armed confrontations in many countries, including Yemen. In his speech given to COP27, head of the PLC called on the international community to adopt a quick mechanism to end the suffering of Yemenis. Al-Alimi called for building the destroyed Yemeni cities, protect biodiversity and environmental resources. He added that Yemen is among the countries threatened by drought and depletion of groundwater. While world leaders discuss compensating poor nations for damage linked to global warming, suffering of Yemenis has been aggravated by climate change in many aspects. This report has more details.
Drought, severe storms, deadly heat waves. These terrifying scenes caused by the climate crisis have become all too common across the globe. Hidden behind these extreme weather events, climate change is eroding human capital, the health, knowledge and skills that people need to realize their full potential, hitting the poor and vulnerable hardest. World leaders and diplomats framed the fight against the global warming as a battle for human survival during the opening speeches at the COP27 Climate Summit in Egypt. With the head of the United Nations declaring a lack of progress so far, had the world speeding down a highway to hell. In Yemen, walking long distances to collect drinking water is a daily chore to many families. Fetching water from streams caused great hardship, and many children dropped out of school to devote themselves to this task every day. A simple rainwater harvesting scheme now made this burden fade away. Yet in Yemen, where climate change threatens to make rainfall even rare and droughts more common, people in countless rural communities remain vulnerable. Children face an uncertain future where dropping out of school may be the trade-off for survival. Across all ages, climate is hurting people's well-being and potential. Extreme heat, for example, increases hospitalization during pregnancy and chronic and acute malnutrition in early childhood. Extreme heat is also directly linked to lower learning outcomes such as test scores and resulted in an estimated global loss of 470 billion work hours among working adults. Poor people in particular are exposed to higher risks as they often live in low-quality housing, have low or no savings, and lack access to support systems such as healthcare. World Bank analysis shows that climate change has a large and uneven impact on poverty and economic opportunities, especially for the most vulnerable members of society. But people are not passive victims. It's the people who will drive the necessary innovations and adaptations to alleviate the impact of climate change everywhere.
It is time for nations to come together for implementation. It is time for international solidarity across the board. Solidarity that respects all human rights and guarantees a safe space for environmental defenders and all actors in society to contribute to our climate response. Let's not forget that the war on nature is itself a massive violation of human rights. We need all hands on deck for faster, bolder climate action. A window of opportunity remains open, but only a narrow shaft of light remains. The global climate fight will be won or lost in this crucial decade on our watch. And one thing is certain, those that give up are sure to lose. So let's fight together and let's win. Thank you.
The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, concluded his visit to Riyadh. Grunberg met with the US ambassador, the Saudi ambassador to Yemen, and diplomats from the permanent members of the Security Council. The discussions focused on ways to renew the truce and work to achieve a ceasefire and revive the political process in Yemen. Violent battles confrontations erupted between government forces and Houthi militia in Taiz. Local media sources said that government forces backed by the Popular Resistance repelled the Houthi attack on the northern and western in the city, noting that both sides used various types of weapons. In El Jouf Governorate, a number of the terrorist Houthi militia were killed and wounded in clashes with tribe men gunmen. Local sources said that clashes broke out between the Houthis and tribesmen over a land dispute. Although the United States is under no illusions about Iran's destabilizing actions throughout the region, the U.S. State Department spokesman called on Iran to support an inclusive political process in Yemen. This report has more details.
While Washington has no illusions about Iran's disruptive influence in the area, a U.S. State Department official urged Iran to help Yemen's inclusive political process. When asked if Tehran may sabotage international attempts to extend the truce and find a political settlement in Yemen, a U.S. State Department spokesperson stated that the U.S. is under no illusions about Iran's destabilizing actions throughout the region. On November 2nd, U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen Tim King began a tour of the region, including stops in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia to assist efforts to extend and expand the UN-mediated truce in Yemen. We remind the Houthis that the world is watching their actions and urge them to cooperate with the UN and listen to Yemeni appeals for peace, the department said in a statement. The only path forward to ending 8 years of destructive war is through a durable ceasefire and political settlement that allows Yemenis to determine the future of their country. The UN's human rights head warned on Friday that Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militia has committed war crimes since the ceasefire accord expired last month. The Houthis have vetoed a UN-brokered peace agreement that expired a month ago, shattering some Yemenis' expectations for a larger agreement that would relieve economic hardships and extend a period of relative calm after more than 7 years of conflict. Since then, the UN Human Rights Office has confirmed 3 incidents of shelling in government-controlled regions, as well as 3 incidents of sniper shootings, all of which have been blamed on Yemen's Houthi movement. We are gravely concerned for the safety and security of civilians, said a spokesman for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The deliberate targeting of civilians and civilian objects is prohibited by international law and constitutes a war crime. On Friday, a UN spokesperson told the same Geneva conference that efforts to resurrect the peace agreement between the coalition and the Houthi group were ongoing. Tens of thousands have been killed, Yemen's economy has been decimated, and millions have gone hungry as a result of the conflict, which has been primarily driven by Iran's regional calculations.
Coming next in the news. The United Nations says 3 dead and 28 are missing as a migrant raft sinks off Yemen's shore.
ننزل ندي ماء من الغيل والغيل هذا بعيد، كنا ندي بالدواب نعبي ماء وترجعنا. ننزل الساعة 5 رجعنا الساعة 9.
ما يقلنا ظهر لأنه زحمة ما حد لي يخلي الجهل يغرق وإحنا تعبنا زيادة.
وكنت أحس صدري يوجعني وعز قدرك ركبي يوجعيني.
كنا بنستخدم حتى نغسل أولادنا اللي يعني بأيام معدودة.
كنت أغيب على المدرسة لأن أنا كنت أروح الديمة.
حتى وإن كان يجي الأمطار تروح هدر لأنه ما في معيار الزرع.
الوقت نشتري ب30,000 دي مع هستيلك ما يغلقش معها الشهر.
بس راح تطلب الله ولا أي حاجة، عاملة كل شغلك الماء.
Welcome back. Sources confirmed that the Houthi militia had seized all branches of Al-Aqsa schools and made an inventory of financial funds. Last May, the Yemeni Teachers Syndicate revealed in a report that 49,000 violations committed by the Houthi coup against education since its coup against the state in 2015. The International Civic Center said that the planting of landmines across Yemen is one of the greatest consequences of the war on vital resources. The center said the Houthis planted mines in agricultural lands and near water resources. The report confirmed that the rebels are responsible for planting landmines, causing many casualties among civilians, especially children. The International Organization for Migration announced that at least 28 African migrants were missing after a ship sank off the Yemeni coast early last week. The IOM said that it had verified that the Yemeni Coast Guard had recovered 3 bodies so far. This report gives more details.
In Yemen, where millions try to survive one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, migrants remain among the most vulnerable people in the country. Among the tens of thousands of migrants arriving mainly from Ethiopia and Somalia, many continue to face severe protection risks such as abduction, torture, detention, and exploitation throughout every step of their difficult journey. A raft carrying African migrants seeking a better life in the Gulf Arab states sank in waters off of Yemen late last month, leaving 3 dead and 28 others declared missing. The UN's migration agency said in a statement the overcrowded vessel carrying around 30 East African migrants departed eastern Djibouti for Yemen's west coast. Witnesses who spoke with the International Organization for Migration said the small raft was soon overpowered by high tides and rocky waters and quickly sank. According to United Nations statistics, so far this year, around 54,000 migrants have departed the Horn of Africa for the Gulf Arab states. Most cross Bab el-Mandeb Strait, separating Djibouti and Yemen, in small boats controlled by a network of people smugglers. Many migrants have drowned, with rights groups accusing smugglers of previously throwing people overboard to lighten the weight load. Nearly all migrants arriving in Yemen are East Africans, aiming to cross the border into neighboring Saudi Arabia, and then move on to other Gulf states in search of work. However, few complete the journey. An estimated 43,800 migrants are thought to be stranded in war-ravaged Yemen, where they are often detained, forcibly enlisted as fighters by Yemen's warring factions, or even killed in the crossfire. Most African migrants arriving on Yemen's western shores are fleeing durable conflicts, famine, and authoritarian regimes that have long gripped numerous countries across the Horn of Africa, including Somalia, Eritrea, and Ethiopia.
The ICE branch for medicine launched the Medicine Safety Week campaign. The International Safety Week aims to develop the medical sector by introducing a monitoring system that protects people from medicine complications and side effects. This report has more details.
The smuggled and counterfeit medicines, even expired, has become a threat to the lives of citizens in Yemen, especially amid the conflict. This prompted the health authorities to move and raise a moral responsibility of the medical companies.
The Supreme Drug Corporation is trying to double efforts to fight the challenges faced in the medical sector, which include the expired drugs.
Yemen celebrated for the first time in its history the International Week for Drug Safety Awareness in order to strengthen the practices of reporting drug complications and side effects, reducing the spread of dangerous drugs which have spread throughout the country due to the war conditions, makes reporting complications and expired drugs a top priority.
This is the first time Yemen celebrates the International Week for Drug Safety Awareness. We are raising awareness regarding the side effects of drugs and monitor any changes in the drug or the quality of it. Anyone should report if they use an expired drug, so we can immediately take actions, whether by withdrawing the drugs from pharmacies or informing the hospitals and doctors so they can be aware of it.
The side effects resulting from the dangerous drugs are catastrophic and require an ethical responsibility of the medical companies first, then the social awareness, and an end to the misery that the Yemeni people continue to suffer from.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Houthi strikes on Ma'rib leave several casualties among civilians. Climate change aggravates the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. The United States urges Iran to support peace efforts in Yemen. This is the end of the news. It was Angel Zazi. Thank you for watching.